you so much. Had we all known that there was going to be a concert just before this panel, we might have tried to bring some sort of special talent. But confident in this group, entertaining the rest of the audience here today. As mentioned, my name's Jason Smith. I lead the sales team over at TeamSnap. Met a bunch of different parents in this audience who are users of the app. And what we hear all the time is that, frankly, our customers love the app. And within this group on this panel here, there's a lot of talk about brand love and how these different marketing leaders are approaching that for all the brands that they work with. And Kelsey, I'm going to start off with you. Would love to hear first your background, biggest challenge you're facing today.
My name's Kelsey Kozad, so I run social media for a local nonprofit called Sleep in Heavenly Peace. I'm also the social media manager at Express, large retailer here in Columbus. I've had a pretty extensive career in a number of different places. I started my career here at Shipyard, by the way. Rick, don't know if you remember me. Yeah.
That wasn't your name.
No, I got married.
There you go.
I know.
Yeah, that's right.
Biggest challenge, I think, is the dichotomy that we're seeing from a social perspective and communicating our brand message on social. So there's a real eagerness for authenticity from social and in that space, but also an affinity for the artificial, right? So it's balancing that, the real and the fake, and staying true to our brand message right now.
Awesome. Linda, posing the same question to you.
All right. So I am a digital communications manager at Goodyear. Prior to that, I was in retail, nationwide for a hot minute, but Big Lots for a little bit longer. Social media has been my background, but right now I'm kind of a marketing gal on the communications team at Goodyear. And my biggest challenge is unifying global teams around the importance of social media, trying to transform it into a function at a big old heritage legacy brand, that it might not be something that people were paying attention, or it was something cute they're giving to the brand manager or to the intern or to the agency. And I'm trying to build it up into a real function and connecting the internal, external, and marketing teams. So I'm kind of a cat herder a little. They're following me, so that's good. But it's been a challenge. It's going to continue to be a challenge as we educate the organization and build that up.
Great. Ryan?
Yeah, so Ryan Sanecki. I oversee digital for Bibibop Asian Grill. I, too, started my kind of career in Columbus. Here at the Shipyard, shout out to Megan Dunick, who I see in the back. Everyone else that I saw earlier, it's great to catch up. Biggest issue that we've run into is probably just bringing all of our data into one central location. We have third party where we don't really have the data of what's important to someone, competing with loyalty and things like that. So I think really just having one unified place for information is kind of our biggest hurdle.
Great. And Tony, take us home.
Awesome. Hey, hi everyone. I'm Tony. First of all, thank you so much for having us. Really excited to be here. I lead shopper marketing and e-commerce at Bob Evans, and in my role, I specify about consumer engagement, understanding how the shoppers shop from an in-store perspective, from an out-of-store perspective, right? Also from an online. Mainly, I work with on the retail side, so I've always been a consumer packaged goods. So everything that it comes to shopping at Walmart, shopping at Kroger, understanding that grocery shopper. And I would say one of the biggest challenges that we face today is, which is a good challenge, keeping up with the macro environment. The macro environment is changing so fast when it comes to everything that's happening, not only from a inflation standpoint, food prices are going up, but also staying up to speed in this industry that is always evolving. The path to purchase is no longer linear. We need to understand how the shoppers shop from a seamless execution and trying to reach that shopper through an omni-channel lens. So I would say it's a challenge, but it's a good challenge for sure.
We'll get back to that in a little bit. But to start off, Linda, I'm going to come to you. What I'd love to hear first are, give me some examples in the way that Goodyear has seen some success with brand love and brand visibility. And you're in charge of a brand, as you mentioned, that feels a little old. How have you approached that?
We have a success story this week, actually. And I joke when people ask me this, and the answer is we have a blimp. Not everybody does. We actually have three. We have 3 blimps. There's your fun fact. There's one in Ohio, Florida, California. They rotate to make sure the wear and tear stays even. But this week, what we did is we executed a surprise and delight opportunity on our Goodyear blimp handles. this is big. This is outside of Goodyear's comfort zone. This is scary. This is user-generated content. This is a little girl who is 3 years old, and 3-year-olds are very unpredictable. But we pitched it, we went through it, we explained the success for it, and it actually went off even better than we thought it was going to. So you can follow along. There's 4 parts up there. It's Goodyear Blimp on Facebook and Instagram. And what we're trying to do is just really lean into the blimp as an entry point to our brand, because nobody wants to buy tires. Tires are expensive. Tires aren't fun. You need them. They're a critical part of your vehicle, but it's the worst thing to actually have to buy. So we're trying to really lean into that gateway, which is a happy kind of mascot, and we're starting to evolve what that blimp's presence is on social media, and that's something that my team is starting to lead. And then partnering with our regions to give them some of that feel-good, happy content to supplement the content about tire wear and tear, purchase, rebates, all the things.
Can you talk a little bit about how you were able to get buy-in from whether it's the executive team or organization at large, knowing, like, as you mentioned, this is something outside of the typical scope of what Goodyear's done previously?
It's actually something I tell my kids is do it scared, and really point to the best practices that, we're behind a big old legacy brand. But we talked through the contingencies. We have everything signed. Legal's on board, and that's no small feat. And so showing them what it could be and what could happen. And then I think an example from the previous conversation was we showed them other brands that were doing it. And we're like, if they can do it and they don't have a blimp, why can't we do it? And like I said, it was just getting them to trust. And so I've been at Goodyear 2.5 years. So this is new. Like, we wanted to do this on day one, but this has been about building street cred, a little bit of swagger, and then also a little bit of just some successes and some wins that have happened over the past couple years to show and prove that I know what I'm doing and willing to accept the risk.
I know we talked about this a little bit before, but ultimate reception internally, overwhelmingly positive, correct?
Very positive. I think what it's happening is it's giving my boss giving him some social street cred in the cubicle village, and also letting him go and say, like, look, when we let them loose a little bit, they dotted the I's, crossed the T's, but this is what happened. And it also sparked some great conversation. If you follow on Instagram, you see people sharing stories of their blimp encounters, trying to get us to come to their house, all of these things. And the entire thing actually happened from social listening. We caught it on social listening, and the blimp, I'm not kidding, was in the neighborhood of this little girl's house. So we're not just gonna do this. We were 30 minutes away. We're like, we can make this happen.
That's great, and congrats on the success with that. It's awesome. Kelsey, going to kick that question your way as well, whether it's at Express or any of your other previous stops. Some examples that you've been able to really build brand love within the brands you work with.
Yeah, I think a big differentiator for Express specifically is we've really tapped into our consumer on social and the behaviors that they're adopting now. So there was a time when we all shifted to short form video a year ago. And in that transition, we discovered that everyone became a creator, right? So our styling community is a huge differentiator. We empower our consumers to create content. We offer discounts as a part of our style editor program, and empower them through promotion on our social channels, in-store events, et cetera. I haven't seen it done through other retailers, right? We're not soliciting UGC through contests. It's sort of an always-on empowerment of the mindset that our consumers naturally have. And so we're adopting that in the omni-channel experience, right? So it started as an organic social effort. You see it in paid ads and emails, et cetera, and it's sort of become the face of the business at this point. So we're really proud of it.
What are some of the ways that you've encouraged users to engage that way? So totally love the idea of making sure this isn't just some sort of contest or feeling forced for that to happen. How have you been able to get the consumer to kind of do that on their own?
There's incentives, right? As with anything, it's not necessarily like a trip to France, but you can get a couple of Express dollars, right, to go shop. It's also empowering with copy, with brand voice, with language. You're an insider. You're a part of our style community. We really bring you in and invite you to host events within our store. There's incentives and brand trips. You can meet some celebrity partners. But more than that, I think it's amplifying those people on social to our large audience every single day. It's calling them what they are, creators, and paying them to do the great work that they're doing, and bringing them into our brand purpose, which is creating confidence and inspiring self-expression. And so I think because we have a soul as a brand and we live it out, that's the ultimate incentive, right? And they buy in, so.
Awesome. Ryan, I'm going to kick this your way. We heard a little bit about consumer products with tires and with clothes. I want to hear a little bit about food, whether it's
Yeah.
current stop at Bibibop or previous stops you had prior to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bibibop, has everyone here heard of Bibibop? Are they familiar with the brand? If not, use code BRANDLOVE at checkout. You save $2 on any order. I had to do it. We're trying to hit digital numbers here, so BRANDLOVE. But Bibibop's cool because we're 100% gluten-free. So anyone that's dealing with celiac or anything like that, we are the brand for them. Those are usually the folks that when we're giving away free Bibibop for a year at a grand opening, it's usually the first like 20 people are all celiacs. This is the first time they can explore, quick serve restaurants. So I think that aspect is really cool and it's translated pretty well in digital. So we have influencers, of course, just being happy to share gluten-free options when you don't want to cook. But we also have bloggers as well, which from a data standpoint, this is great if you're tracking links to see where's traffic really coming from. This is where you start to see, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't be spending $2 million for Kylie Jenner to talk about Bibibop and how the avocado makes her skin clear. Instead, we can go after, those small wins of just a blogger out of Chicago that she shares her bowl every time she goes to Bibibop. So brand love there is it's kind of interesting, pushing a product that's not dedicated to the best burger, but instead we're kind of pushing almost a lifestyle of what does well-being look like. That's what we constantly talk about. So I would say from that aspect, the well-being aspect works really well. I'm fortunate that I worked with Marriott on their digital agency where influencers and tracking links was a little differently. We created a tool where we geofenced all major properties and we could see if someone shared an Instagram and they put a caption, I'm engaged. We created a tool that would scan that, look to see does that match anyone in the reservation system. And then from there, we would surprise and delight them as well. So a lot of smaller scale, but I think we still are understanding our consumer and the experience overall. And lastly, since I'm an SEO kid at heart, learning SEO and what search terms people are really using definitely helps drive what you should be marketing. I worked for the Florida Department of Health on their vaccination program in 2018. And we tracked what was the sentiment of vaccination versus immunization. Florida Department of Health, they always use vaccination. When we studied what's the overall response to this content, it was always negative. But we thought, well, what if we tried the same thing, but instead of using vaccination, we used immunization, and we actually flipped sentiment 70% positive. So instead of people just commenting, I'm not gonna vaccinate my kid, it was almost as if we were turning immunization content into bumper stickers back when Facebook walls were sharing those bumper stickers that saying, hey, I endorse this. So brand love is great when you understand how people are finding you, whether that be through links or just looking to see what words convert.
Awesome. And how agile are you, whether it's current role or previous roles, with making these different types of, call it switches or adjustments on the fly? Is this happening on a weekly basis? Is this happening on a daily basis? What's that looking like for you?
Yeah, so great question. I started with the shipyard where thankfully everyone's really nimble. So I learned what does it take to kind of move that needle with a flip of a switch. So we're getting into programmatic SEO where we can almost make shifts for every consumer. I'm pretty sure Brand Innovators uses programmatic SEO because today when I Googled Brand Innovators Columbus, my speaking engagement showed up as #1. So yeah, we're trying to be nimble as possible. I have a team of 4. We all work really hard, but we're also really smart when it comes to what data are we looking at and what does success look like as well. Because in social, success is so different across every brand that you're with. So thankfully, the VP of marketing that I started with, Casey Minton, shout out to him, we defined this is what success is gonna look like on all campaigns. And that has kind of been the scorecard moving forward.
Awesome. Tony, I'm going to go to you now. And question for you. So shopper marketing requires knowing the customer's needs and interests really well. How have you gained that insight?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a shopper marketing standpoint, especially when it comes to CPG, we need to understand how the shopper shop, from an in-store perspective, from an out-of-store perspective. Nowadays, as I mentioned, I talk a little bit more about the path to purchase is no longer linear. It's more from an omni-channel perspective. And what that means is shoppers can be nowadays, buying on their phone, they're on digital, they are going in store, either doing grocery shopping, they're using their phone, but at the same time they're also doing a lot of grocery delivery. What happened with the pandemic have accelerated the grocery shopping. So we need to understand how that shopper go and that person shopping mode in order to reach that person. How we gain that insight is all about partnership. It's about partnering with our cross-functional team, with our sales team, but most importantly, with our retailers. That's why we talk about building that customer relationship. It's about partnering with them. In the case of Kroger, we work very closely with our buyers, with our merchants to understand the category itself, how the category is performing. When we launch a new product, we talk about understanding the need and the wants of the consumer. So working with 8451, which is one of the data company for Kroger, to understanding that behavior, where that shopper is, and if we want to reach more household from an acquisition standpoint or retaining that household. So those are the things that I will have to say, like from a shopper marketing standpoint, we need to understand not only the data, but it's also building that relationship with the customer. At the end of the day, is understanding where we are from a macro environment standpoint.
Yeah, so taking that a little bit further, we were hit with COVID, which was something that was completely out of left field. How are you making sure that you're preparing for what the future of shopping looks like for your customers while still making sure there's just as keen of an eye on present day?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really actually very quick question. I will have to say this industry is always evolving. What I mean with that is nowadays, so raise your hand who shop both online and from a grocery shopping perspective and in-store. So I will have to say like today is more like a hybrid situation, hybrid shopping. So we need to understand how to navigate that. And when it comes to delivery, there's so many providers out there. There's Instacart, there's Ship, but at the same time, a lot of retailers are also improving their delivery system. We have Walmart Plus, we have grocery delivery where you can just sign up for a membership and you get free delivery. So you get discount, you get deals. So it's always about understanding where that shopper goes, especially with nowadays. Like I will have to say hybrid shopping, and with the evolution of everything that is going, people are buying online, people are using their mobile to shop. So it's always staying, with the trends of what's going on in the environment.
Great, appreciate the answer there. So Kelsey, going to bring this back to you. You have extensive experience in corporate communication. How has that played into how you think about brand messaging, whether it's with Express or other roles you've been at as well?
Yeah, so I was in a retail capacity with corporate comms too, and I think the big lesson there was, at least from a messaging standpoint, corporate comms I think is the genesis of effective brand love, right? If you can get buy-in internally on the brand purpose and the brand position, if you can get buy-in through your investors, through thought leadership, if everybody is sharing the vision, the touch points, we talked about sort of the love timeline earlier. Every piece of the business that touches that timeline is all speaking the same language, right? And from my perspective, that starts at corporate comms. That starts with the repetition of the messaging in earnings calls, in executive comms, and LinkedIn posts, things that are often overlooked, but are really important in not only making sure you're staying true to the soul of the company, but communicating that effectively across the organization.
Linda, I'm going to pose that same question to you, knowing that you're at a company right now that really it's got multiple lines of business and multiple ways that it's reaching that customer. How have you approached that?
Carefully sometimes, honestly, because at the brand like Goodyear, there's a lot of very old school thinking, so we have to go slow. We can't just flip things over as much as I really, really, really want to. So what we've been doing is trying to go for quick wins, trying to kind of shore up our foundation, which is the worst part of all things social. I'm talking passwords, tech stack, accounts. I mean, I've been in a 1.5 long conversation with Meta about consolidating accounts. But all of that is so that we can show up as one brand, because the consumer, we have two kind of customers. We have consumers who are you guys, and we have customers who are the Fords of the world. But no matter who you are, when you're looking at us in the digital space, we're Goodyear. We're not Goodyear North America. We're not Goodyear Europe. We are Goodyear, and we need to fix that experience. So however you land on our digital properties, it's Goodyear in the language that you should be consuming it in. So I've been working on that. It's been a saga. I feel like people don't believe me that we're going to get it done. We're close. It's painful. But what I can do is I'm trying really hard to control what I can control. So I can control LinkedIn. I can control the messaging. I can control how I want associates to talk about Goodyear and how I give them the permission to do that. So we're really leaning into having associates help tell that story, so we can role model that behavior and then try to figure out how we can globalize the story while still thinking locally. So again, we want it in people's language, but we want them to be able to pick it up really easily and use it, and that kind of goes back to the tech. So it's a really muddy to-do list, which I was just showing my friend a little bit ago, full of stars and asterisks and arrows, but it really is meant to get the foundation set up so we do show up as a heritage historical brand the way we should, in all of the places that you as a consumer or as our customers would want to consume.
Cool. So taking a shift, I know that can get a little muddy and gray and what that messaging looks like. Ryan, going to kick it over your way. What are some of the creative ways that you've started building customer relationships at Bibibop?
Yeah, absolutely. So shortly after I started, I kicked off a project called Project Spider, which I don't know why I called it Spider. But anyway, what I wanted to do was try and get into segmenting as much as I could with our loyalty data. I'm not a data scientist. I don't play one on TV. But I understand. I can look to see, when does someone come in? Do they come in during the day, or do they eat for dinner? Do they order one bowl? Do they order multiple bowls? So for us, it's trying to segment as much as we can so we can understand what message are we pushing out and at what time. This not only helps us drive a well-targeted message, but also it helps cut down on costs of paying to message everyone in our loyalty program. Instead, we're messaging kind of one to some instead of one to all. So that's really ultimately how we're looking at decisions when it comes to messaging. Every message we put out, we try and answer, does it cause people to engage, entertain, or inspire? If it doesn't fit one of those three categories, it falls apart. As well as, are we including a link? So we think content, what content are we ultimately pushing out? Are we pushing tempting to click content, where that's the type of content where you don't share what you're looking at, you're just looking at it? So for me, it's usually anything like The Bachelor, right? That's tempting to click content. I don't tell anyone I'm looking at The Bachelor. But there's tempting to share content, which is like causes, how I'm being a better person. So we also try and figure out, okay, at the end of the day, what's success look like? Is it click to learn about this blog post that we wrote and then order? Or is it share your promo code with a friend and see, are we driving, shares instead of, frequency?
Great. And Tony, kicking that your way as well. What are some of the creative ways that you and your team are approaching this?
Yeah, I would have to say building that customer relationship not only with the retailer but also with our consumers are going to be key. An example that we have is this time last year we launched mashed cauliflower. Mashed cauliflower was all based on the insights of what consumers are looking for when it comes to adding more veggies to the plate. They just didn't have the time to prepare. They didn't know how to, when it comes to cut the cauliflower, how to make it. They don't have the time. So it's all about the convenience. So we partner with our retailer Kroger, and we, based on the insights, what the consumers are looking for, we actually launched mashed cauliflower. Mashed cauliflower went on to win Product of the Year, which is great. It was a great opportunity for us. Our brand team did an amazing job. From a launch perspective, we launched and we partner. We are big on test and learn. We partner with different digital vendors, which one of our campaign also went on being a finalist on DigiDay. They also won the Mertech as well when it comes to breakthrough mobile creative. But it's all about building that relationship. Again, not only with the customer, but that's how we build the brand love with the relationship with the retailers and also with the consumer as well.
Awesome. And Tony, I want to keep it with you because you were talking a little bit about the shift in online ordering and whatnot, but how has online and shopper marketing really changed due to the different way that shoppers are shopping now versus what they might have been doing 5-10 years earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. I will have to say the pandemic definitely accelerated the online grocery shopping. And for us, we needed to understand where we are and where we want to go in 3 to 5 years. So from a brand love perspective, we have done a lot of things when it comes to improving our brand presence and online. And what that means is not only from a PDP standpoint, the product detail page, when it comes to when you go to the retailer.com, like for example, and I say retailer.com, like Kroger.com, you pull in and you type in mashed potato. We want to make sure from an SEO perspective we're on top of the search. We want to make sure like when we click on mashed potato, which is Bob and mashed potato, our PDP page, which is the detailed shelf page, it is updated not only from a imagery standpoint, but created that marketing content, that enhancement from above the fold and below the fold. But most importantly, is creating and having that customer review and ratings review. Those are the things for us that we have been building that online brand presence. But in addition to that, when it comes to delivery, we have been working with a lot of third-party delivery, that Instacart. We have found a lot of success when it comes to targeting our consumer and making sure that we have a strong presence online.
Kelsey, I want to bring that question to you as well. Knowing Express, assuming significant online business in the direct-to-consumer side, how is that impacting you all? And how are you shaping your strategy, knowing many of the shoppers are shopping online versus in-store?
So it's exciting because the community I was talking about earlier, the styling community, which we're empowering our consumers, seeing them as creators because they're creating content anyway, and empowering them to create content with our product and visit us in the store to shop and host events. We're also taking that content, which is performing super well on organic social, and putting it on our PDP pages to convert there too. So it's sort of bringing our customer in for the entire life cycle, right? You can interact with the styling community, be inspired to join it in every omni-channel touch point with Express, which is what we want, right? It's building brand love from start to finish.
Cool. I'm going to take this a different direction. So we're talking a lot about consumers right now, and the end is that potential purchaser of the product. But what we haven't really talked about is another, call it, whether it's consumer or at least part of the company, is the employee. And Linda, I know that you're overseeing internal comms, and want to get your input and insight into Goodyear, humongous organization as it relates to employee count. How does an employee advocacy program play into potentially building brand love for a brand that extends not just to the consumer, but also the employees as well?
We're figuring that out right now. Like I mentioned at Goodyear, we're building a lot of things. We're behind on a lot of things. So advocacy landed on my plate, and we are starting small. It's a pilot program built intentionally to save us from ourselves. So we started very small with hashtag Team Goodyear, and I just started putting that into LinkedIn posts. I didn't really ask for permission. I just did it. That's my career, and that's how I've ended up here. But I started to use hashtag Team Goodyear, and that was something very easy for people to understand and get behind. So we started to do that. It was maybe a year, and then we started to pull in an advocacy program with a vendor that lets us upload pictures, approved copy, and disclosures to the posts that we want to have people publish. And what started out as this kind of hashtag and then social media Mad Libs, which I'm not kidding, was I went to fill in the event. I learned, fill in what you learned. And it made me feel, fill in your feelings. And I was sending that out to leaders who were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Now I know what to say. Now we have this pilot program where we have images, we have emojis. I love emojis. So you'll see when I write them because it's emojis. We have the right hashtags, we have the right disclosure, and we're trying to shift the thinking from self-promotion, which is look at me, to this is your personal brand that ties back to Goodyear. So that's a shift for me going from marketing to comms, is I'm not trying to sell a tire, although I am. I'm not having you click to buy now, or I'm not looking at shopper data, although I sort of am, because you can't take the marketing out of the girl who's in comms. But what I am doing is teaching people how to sell the brand through what they are doing in a way that is authentic and genuine, and maybe is only 30% about Goodyear and 70% about what they're reading, what they're doing, how they're working, what they do in their free time, but that still ties back to the brand. So it's been a lot of change management, a lot of pep talks, a lot of reminders that this isn't about like getting a new job. This is about saying how cool the people are who work here, and making that part of people's consideration set when they do buy tires every however many years. I think it's 4.
So going off of that, we hear from a lot of the different panelists up here how we're measuring with these different tactics are landing with consumers. Linda, how are you measuring or at least evaluating what's working amongst the employee engagement?
Okay, this is so not scientific, but it's based on who is emailing me ticked off about something. I'm not even kidding. And so far I'm good. The people who I thought would be really mad about certain things have not. So what I am looking at though on the back end is educating our teams, going beyond impressions. We're trying to go beyond just the vanity metrics. I'm trying to look at the types of content that are shared, establishing the content pillars that people care about, tracking even hashtags and followers. I know those are vanity metrics, but that's sometimes all we've got when it comes to the advocacy. But even small little wins where we're talking about corporate comms, we're sliding in some UTM codes on some videos, and I taught some people what that was. There was some things that it wasn't in place yet, because again, it was comms, very traditional focused press releases. So trying to find the so what in everything that we're doing, and then also trying to tie it back to a goal, or even if they just shared it. If they just shared it, that's a win for me, whether you have 0 followers or 100,000.
Awesome. Well, Tony, I'm going to come to your way first, then I'm going to go down the line and ask everyone. Prediction for 2024. If there was one thing that you think is going to stand out, be it a medium, channel, trend that you're going to see that's going to be building customer love or brand love amongst these different customer relationships, what do you think it's going to be?
Again, really great question, so thank you, Jason. I will have to say, like, from a trend perspective, what I see, this is my point of view of one. I think nowadays is when it comes to in the area that I am, CPG, there's a lot of talk about ChatGPT. There's a lot of talk about AI, how that is gonna affect or how that we're gonna use that type of technology to reach shopper, right? You know, if you go in and sometimes you Google and you will see a lot of things when it comes to like people saying, hey, I just used ChatGPT and just created my recipe for the night, or ChatGPT created my shopping list for me to go stay under a budget of $100 to go grocery shopping, right? So it's about how can we keep up with that type of like macro trends. I think that's something that we will see more and more when it comes to AI and when it comes to ChatGPT. How would that affect, when it comes to like what for dinner or, your grocery shopping? So I feel like that's going to be an area of opportunity.
Yeah, AI will definitely be playing a big part in what we see in the near term. Ryan, posing that question to you.
Yeah, I think ChatGPT as well. I talked about programmatic SEO. You're not going to hire a copywriter to write 50 different pages. ChatGPT is getting better than I think a lot of people think. So programmatic SEO, I think that's going to be the biggest. And just understanding how are people finding you and then speaking to them that way instead of thinking, oh, they're definitely interested in bean sprouts when really the top selling topping is, cheese. So talk more about cheese. Programmatic SEO.
Linda?
I want to say something super scientific and trendy, but for us, it's just going to be about continuing to shore up all of our digital pieces to get to what a best-in-class company like Goodyear should look like. I will say we are using and looking at AI, but for us, it's from an efficiency standpoint. So for me, it's writing versions of the same thing that sound really kind of different, and we're also looking at it as a way to categorize and sort through tons and tons of historical information. I'm talking patents, images, videos. We've got assets that go back 125 years. So we're looking at AI a little bit differently, maybe than some other brands. Although I know my partners on the marketing side are probably thinking more like you guys.
And Kelsey?
These guys took it super robotic, so I'll stay on the other end of the spectrum. I think from a social perspective, what we're really going to start to see is less brand content and more lifting of the fourth wall. So more follow me, Kelsey, the social girl at Express, and less follow Express, right? You see that in sort of the short form content where we're being really self-aware and we're speaking to what a day in the life in our job is like. And I see that cutting through more and more as we move toward the future.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate everyone up here being able to contribute to the conversation. I think we're going to open up the floor to questions if anyone has any.
All right, I feel like all the time there's new channels. How do you guys keep up and not drive yourselves crazy? And then I guess the second part to that would be, how do you approach different content strategy per channel? Because I feel like I'm in B2B, and it's hard because, you know, it's easy to just say everything works across every channel, but we all know that's not true. So I guess, I don't know who wants to answer. Maybe Kelsey, that's more of your world. So.
I'm happy to take this question. So we actually, I'm sure you guys all did too, dealt with us with Threads coming out. It was like, what do we do? And luckily, we had sort of gone through the testing with Be Real, with TikTok now, with sort of the trendy flash in the pan social things. So my team did a really great job of creating a framework for Express of how we identify, how we decide if it's brand right, and what we do to adopt, right? So we're in the analytics of each of our social channels. We know who we're reaching on each of our social channels, whether it's existing customers or new customers. So depending on who comes out with the new platform, depending on the content we have and what we know we're creating, right, which is a lot of short form video, it doesn't make sense for us to play there. It might be hot and trendy now, but maybe it's not brand right for us. And B, what's the amount of time we wait? We saw really with Be Real like a 6-month curve, right, where it was like hot for a second and then all of a sudden it was nothing. So we created a threshold for ourselves of, let's give this a second, see if it's still around, and then maybe we'll reevaluate and see if it is brand right for Express. So we're super excited about that, and it's been a good formula for us.
Yeah, we're the same one. Oops, I said I wasn't going to swear. Anyway, so for Bibibop, we're focused on how are we going to view each channel. So one channel could be very much blockbuster content. When you think back, I think it was Alan Horn, who was like the head of CBS, and then the head of Fox was Mark Zucker. There's a great book called Blockbusters. Check it out. They talk about how you take small bets on smaller channels as you kind of build up momentum for that blockbuster content, where it's fewer pieces of content, but you know I can invest a few more dollars and really get things right, make sure it's branded correctly.
I think we're at time. But yeah, thanks so much to the panel. This was fantastic. And yeah.
What a great panel.